Today on r/PettyRevenge. Ruin my wedding to propose? I'll ruin your proposal. I have a young brother, Todd, who had a complicated birth and had to stay a month in the ICU, and because of that, my parents have always doted on him and denied him nothing, even if it was to the detriment of my sister Abby and I. My brother drinks in on the attention and has more than one occasion made himself the center of attention at either my sister's or my cousin's special event. Because of this, Abby, my sister, and I have always had a strained relationship with Todd and our parents. Unfortunately, Todd met and fell in love with Lucy, who announced her own pregnancy at the baby shower my mom held for Abby, my sister. Jesus. When I proposed to my wife Michelle, I just wanted to elope, but she really wanted her family to be there, so I invited my family out of obligation. While my best man Jim noticed a receipt from a jewelry store slip out of Todd's pocket, Jim confronted Todd about this, which led to an argument. Jim told me about everything, and I told Todd he was no longer going to be my groomsman, because I knew he was going to propose at my wedding. Todd cried to our parents, which led to a blowout. In my parents' eyes, since Todd never admitted that he was going to propose to Lucy at my wedding, I was unfairly judging him. I refused and brought up Todd's past behavior. My parents couldn't refute this and got Todd to agree to not try anything at my wedding. This wasn't enough to convince me to let him be my groomsman, but I warned him if, as a guest, he'd try anything, I'd make him regret it. Fast forward to the wedding, and surprise, surprise, Todd walked over to Lucy, proposed to her during Michelle's father-daughter dance, and did it in a way that everyone would notice. Holy shit, I hate it here. Cue my revenge. Jim and I hired a woman to pretend to be Todd's side piece, who cornered Todd and Lucy and claimed that she was pregnant with his baby. Todd denied this, but when she called his phone, I gave her his number and messed with Todd's phone to incriminate him. It didn't look good. Lucy threw the ring back at Todd and left in tears. When Todd saw the smile on my face, he knew it was me. I didn't respond to a single call/text from him or my parents until the honeymoon. Lucy has thrown Todd's stuff out and has been denying access to their kid. Todd is furious and is demanding that I clear his name. I sent him a text saying I have no idea what he was talking about, as well as a screenshot for the bill of the wedding, and gave him a vague message demanding reimbursement for half the wedding cost. Michelle knew the whole time what I was planning and gave me the green light after Todd ruined her moment with her dad, so I felt pretty good, but now even Abby thinks I went too far. This is absolutely golden. That guy deserves every bit of this. If you want to be the center of attention, oh boy, you'll be the center of attention after this. 10 out of 10. Stranger tells me, smile, it could be worse. Instantly regrets it. Last week, I was out and about, starting on some errands I had. As I was walking, I was going through this long to-do list in my head. I wasn't frowning, I wasn't smiling, my face was just neutral. A man starts heading towards me. As we pass, he tells me, smile, it could be worse. I stop, stare at him for a moment, and then I say, my parents were in an accident. My mom died on impact. We're turning off my dad's life support tomorrow. The guy looked like a robot being suddenly shut down. His face fell. He looked like a deer in headlights. He stuttered and stammered. He was obviously trying to think of something to say, and when he couldn't, he turned around and sped walked away. My parents are both fine. There's no accident, but it annoys me when people think they have the right to dictate how people are feeling, what expressions they make, especially when they don't know what's going on in their lives. It's unhelpful and patronizing. Imagine telling somebody who was just given a terminal diagnosis, smile, it could be worse, or somebody who has a lost child, been laid off, or is otherwise struggling and in a terrible situation. Like, I definitely get why you put this on r/PettyRevenge, because that's super petty, but I really get why you did it. It's super condescending of somebody to just tell you to smile. Like, you don't know what somebody's going through. Don't force somebody to have emotions. Just move on with your life, man.
My half-sister wanted to show up in a wedding dress to my engagement party, so I changed the party theme so that she would fit right in. My half-sister, Heather, and I never really got along. We're both 24. My father left my mother for her mother, and we were both born in the same month, 20 days apart. It's always been weird. It doesn't help that Heather's mom hates me and my mom. By extension, Heather and I didn't have the best relationship. She was always trying to one-up me, even though we both have a similar economic background. I can give examples of this, but for the sake of the word limit, I won't write them here. So my fiance and I got engaged last month, and we had our engagement party this Saturday. We had planned it for originally to be a casual, formal event. Nice dresses, but not I'm going to the Met Gala kind of nice. More like we're going to a nice restaurant. Anyway, my cousin hits me up saying she has something to show me. It was a picture of this dress that Heather was gonna wear. Okay, yeah, that definitely looks like a wedding dress. This dress. Jesus Christ. It can only be described as opulent. It was long and white, strapless with sewn-in crystals, and golden accents. I'm pretty sure it's a wedding dress, but I can't be 100%. It made me mad. So I decided, that. I started texting people, telling them that there had been a change of plans, and that instead of a casual formal, I decided to make it a costume party. My mother's side is crazy for Halloween, so they were immediately on board. I told my father via text and asked him to relay the message to Heather and her mother, knowing full well that he would forget to leave it to the last minute. Saturday comes along. Guests start showing up, most of them in costumes. Some didn't have time to get one, so we just provided them with hats and cheap wigs. Heather and my dad and her mother come like 1 hour late. As soon as she noticed that everyone was either wearing elaborate costumes or weird accessories and didn't stand out, she lost it. Especially when my fiance came along and told her, "Wow, that bride dress looks amazing for a cheap costume." She left crying, and her mother and father told me that I was being childish, and I should have told Heather myself and not have tasked my father. For those interested, my fiance was dressed as Bubbles and I was dressed as Mojo Jojo. My mom and aunts went as ABBA. Other memorable costumes were Luffy and Zoro, Ian Malcolm, John Hammond, and Jesus. This post was originally on Am I the Butthole? And honestly, I don't think so. I think this was the perfect form of revenge.
So, you want to snoop through your daughter's text? So I'm married to a wonderful woman. She's smart, funny, and very kind. Her mother is generally very nice and tends to have a great attitude and be very enjoyable. A bit of a prude, but generally enjoyable. However, can be a bit of a major snoop. If my wife leaves her phone sitting around, she'll just pick it up and start going through it. My wife has kind of laughed this off as a remnant of her mom being controlling when she was a kid. I'm not a fan of this because my wife and I sometimes text about things that simply don't involve her mother, and I don't feel that are her business at all. So, over Christmas, I saw my wife set her phone down on the kitchen counter, and I had a brilliant idea. Her mom was still in the kitchen, and I sent my wife the most depraved text about all the things I was gonna do to her when everyone left. Honestly, most of them aren't even things we've done, but I wanted to make it extra scarring. I sent this from the bathroom, and maybe it was my imagination, but I swear I could hear an audible gasp after the phone went off. When I went out, her mother absolutely would not look me in the eye, then not so discreetly asked her daughter to come out and talk to her in the other room. When my wife came back in the living room, I thought she'd been crying. However, upon closer inspection, she was laughing. Her mother had questioned her about me, I can't even say this on YouTube, S.A.ing her, and if I always talk down to her like that. My wife told her kindly that what we do is between us and us only. Probably the best gift this Christmas. If you ask me, this was 100% well deserved. If you don't want to see that, don't look through somebody's phone. You know what I mean?
My boyfriend looked up spoilers to our favorite video game, so I did too. My boyfriend and I play Zelda Breath of the Wild together. I'm a take your time and enjoy the ride kind of gal, and he's more of a let's look up how to beat the game right now kind of guy. Because this way ruins all the fun, we came up with the rule: no looking up spoilers. We were looking for a particular challenge, the 8 heroine side quest for my fellow Zelda nerds, for a very long time. Suddenly, my boyfriend said, "I did something bad." I looked up where to go. "I'm so sorry, I just couldn't take it anymore." I told him it was fine, but he couldn't tell me what he had seen. We agreed. I then excused myself to the bathroom and looked up the location as well. I then spent the next hour and a half wandering so close to the location without ever making it there. I could see him squirming around in his seat every time I got close. When I jumped off the cliff that the statue was built onto, gliding down to the base of the statue and continuing on without turning around to look at it, I thought he was going to explode. He was clenching his hair in both fists and biting his lower lip trying to contain himself. That's when I caved and told him what I had done. He thought it was hilarious and told me about how he wanted more than anything to yell, "Turn around, what are you doing?" We had a good laugh about it, and he hasn't looked up a spoiler since. Was it a little petty? Maybe, but it was still super cute and wholesome. I'm glad that OP and her boyfriend could have a fun time and just laugh about this. Don't use me to parent your kids. I have dwarfism, and this often leads to weird interactions in public, especially with kids. Sometimes a kid will come up to me and ask me why I'm so short, and I have a pre-prepared response for that. But most of the time, they just loudly ask their parents why I'm so short. Usually, the parents will awkwardly drag their kids away, telling them not to comment on people in public. This is sad, but it's understandable. I like the parents who just say something about how some people are just born like that. And even though we look a bit different, we're still regular people just like everyone else. Sometimes I hear a gem like, I bet he shrank in the wash. What I can't stand is when people try to use me to parent their kids. I'm sure you can think of ways to convince your kids to finish their plate at dinner that don't involve pointing at a dwarf in public and saying, that's what happens when you leave your food on your plate, or he didn't listen to mommy when she told him to eat all his vegetables. It's rude, it's humiliating, and it teaches your kid that differences are bad, and that people are at fault for their differences or disabilities. It just pisses me off. A few days ago, I was in public and a kid who was maybe 4 or 5 years old was acting out, and his mom was clearly struggling to keep him under control. So she pointed to me and told her son that I was one of Santa's elves, and that I was watching him and could tell Santa about his behavior. The kid's name was on a keyring on his backpack, so I just said, "It's okay, Hunter. You're already on the nice list, and Santa told me that you're getting an iPad this Christmas." Hunter was super excited. His mom was not. This is honestly the best way to go about this situation, because now that kid is going to be pestering his mom the rest of the year for an iPad, and he's going to be very disappointed when he doesn't get one under the tree. So she better get him an iPad.